Shane, how are you, mate? Really great. Come on. Listen, I know it was delayed. You were under the weather there after coming back from Stafford. Um, did you pick someone up at Stafford, or what was it? How was Stafford for you?
Stafford really busy. I mean, there was me, Jamie, Chris, and Matt on the stall, and didn't even get time to leave the stand. Really,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really good. From my perspective, it was like really good, really busy, but I didn't get time in the over show halls to see what was going on, so I can't really judge. But as a trader there, yeah, absolutely fantastic, really. And we've seen, yeah, even Adam knows when he came to my stand, people try and talk to you, and it's hard trying to people at the same time. So yeah, we're good. We're
And was
good.
the general feel around Stafford busy? Like, is the general feel? Because obviously it's probably the first real Stafford we've had out of COVID, because I know last year there was still people to wear masks, there was still huge social
Yeah,
distancing, there was still people hanging around. Did you feel it was a bit of a buzz back and that board keeping has sort of recovered? Because there seems to be a bit of a sort of a, not saying a feeling, but there seems to be a bit definitely that people are thinking that board keeping it's on its way out. But there seems, from the photographs I've seen, there seems to be a bit of a buzz.
yeah, definitely. I mean, when because we obviously we go in as traders, so we was busy from 7 o'clock, and then I literally said to Chris, I said, "God," I said, "the public's not even in yet," and we was busy at that point. So you can imagine. And then the guy came up to me, and I said, "Oh," he said, "Have you been busy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to see the size of the queue outside?" So there was a lot of people there, and I I took some fives up there and some bits for someone to sell, and yeah, they all sold, and there were the people spending money for a change. I know with all this cost of living and stuff, but I suppose when we've got a hobby, people need to feed the birds regardless of what it is, and people are spending money. So yeah,
So
the
it was
general,
good.
yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Now, as most people know you from your YouTube channel, The Boardroom, and we all sort of followed it avidly. But where did board keeping sort of start for Shane? Like when, like,
I was very young, and I used to anything about birds, wildlife, and that's still the same, really. When I was probably 5 or 6, I caught a dunnock in the garden with dustbin lid, a piece of string and a stick, and as you do, pull it, and then I just used to just. I don't think it was about the birds. I think it were about being able to catch a bird. I think it was, and my dad obviously said to me, he said, "No, you're gonna have to stop catching them. It's actually illegal." Next door to us, there was an old man called Eric, and he used to breed red factors. And for my birthday, he bought me a pair of red factors. And obviously, they were kept in the house in a cage. Within no time, same thing again. Went back to him because obviously they were red. We didn't know back then that they needed to be colour fed or anything. So we bred quite a few. Obviously, speaking to Eric, and then my dad basically just got a bit obsessed more than I did. So before we know it, we had literally our back garden was massive, and we had 10 massive flights in there, 2 big sheds, and bred all type of British birds. And my birds, when I was, because my dad was breeding British and he started showing, we weren't allowed to show British birds. So I actually had fifes as a kid, actually, and the red factors were used as feeders for my dad's mules and hybrids. And it just went from there, really. I mean, I would say, like anybody, you get to about the age between when it was probably about 15 to 17, where I just obviously I'd occupied by other things, singing and the women and stuff like that. So the birds went. My dad kept them, and as I was in my 20s, I got married at 22, and I started getting birds again. So it was roller coaster with them. But I think now even anyone that's kept birds, even growing up, it's a thing that through your teenage years you do get rid of them, and things take priority. But once a bird keeper, I think you're always going to be.
yeah, yeah. And your dad obviously showed native birds, and that's where the love of native birds came from.
Well, no, well, it was, yeah, but they were easy to get back then. I mean, up north, the bird scene is a lot bigger than it is down here. So even still now, everyone up there, all the native birds are like everyone in the neighborhood. You didn't have to go like you do these days to find people that breed birds on the same street. You could have 5 or 6 different people breeding them. So yeah, he British birds, mules, hybrids, and he basically took off really quick. Had some big wins at the national, and then became a judge. So yeah, I've always been around it really.
Yeah, yeah. Because Gary McBeath is obviously not too far from you, and he would have discussed when he was growing up, they had huge markets where he used to
Yes,
go down to markets and you could buy boards from anywhere around the world in London.
yeah,
And then, like there was you go down there and there'd be cages full of boards. And he obviously started with I think he started with a hawk of some sort. Gary started with sort of called a wild hawk
yeah,
in.
yeah.
So obviously then when you got married yourself, you started setting up yourself. Did you just naturally go straight into natives, or did you, because
Yeah.
obviously you had fights when your dad had natives, you just got back into British straight away?
Yeah, I always had a soft spot for them, and even as a kid, like we used to breed linnet mules. I mean, I bred my first linnet mule about 13-year-old, but we just couldn't show them. So I always had my hand in there with British birds, and something even now, even though I've got fives, British should never leave my shed. Even though at some points, they test you because the more on the exhibition type of birds, the better they are, the fertility and everything with them goes downhill. But I would never, yeah. I mean, I've not just hard bills. I've had soft bills. I've had so many different types of soft bills as well. So yeah, and the thing is with British birds, it's not just one variety like the fives. It's not there's every category of an hard bill has a different standard than the fife does. Like the fife, it's all on type, whereas the British birds, the classification is totally different for every type.
Yeah. Now, when you touched like I remember years ago when I was growing up, the fella who kept native boards
Mhm.
had 20 different types of native boards.
Yeah,
But as we've seen over probably the last 15 to 20 years, definitely in Canaries. And I've seen it probably with the lads I know that keep British. I'm not an expert in British. I really don't know much about them. I always sort of fear going into them because the horror stories you hear is that they don't breed and they drop off the nest if you fart in the shed, and it's all sort of things. But you see, just like the Canaries, that lads in the British boards have moved into specialising. Like you see, like Kenny Masterson. Kenny Masterson, everyone would know, is a red pole man and keeps a few. I think he's does keep Himalayan siskins or something. He has another part of something, but like, is that where we're gonna go? Like, do you keep all type, or are you like a
no,
greenie
no,
man, or
yeah. I mean, it is the thing is if you want to be successful on the show bench, you've got to really specialise in one variety of birds, unless you're retired. I mean, this is, and I've had this conversation many times that uh, it's a really to spend the time in with British birds as well. You've got to spend the time in with your birds. If you don't put the effort, you're not going to get it out. And it more is prevalent with British birds because, like I said, with the chaffinches, yellowhammers, and stuff, they need live food. They need attention a lot more than what a greenfinch would. So if you're wanting to do well on the show bench with a type of bird like red poll, for instance, you've got to really specialise in them and have something slightly different. Like if I'm keeping greenfinches, I've got a couple of pairs of red polls, I've got a pair of chaffies, but they're not my main focus. They're something to just keep me occupied because I know, like I said, the greenfinches can be testing. So at least I still kept the enjoyment of the British birds with the other types of birds that might siskins and red poles are a bit easier than what an exhibition greenfinch would be.
yeah? And obviously, there's been the emergence of mutation in every single farm,
Yeah,
and none more so than the British.
yeah,
And the introduction probably I probably first seen them in probably 2005 or 2006 at the World Show, where I
mm,
seen the real introduction of the Siberian
yeah.
side of natives, like a Siberian bullfinch and goldfinch. And has that something that's like it obviously took a bit of time to get those recognized on the show bench. There was obviously that period, the gap where they sort of weren't allowed and they weren't classified and they weren't treated as
Well, I'm still quite old school, and so as I would have been one of my first years as novice, I got beat in the actual. So in the sections, you do have 99% of the shows have a section for Siberian or Northern birds, we call them, and and I was beaten by a Northern Cross Goldfinch mule, and it does annoy you because you've done the correct way around, but they breed them for size, and when you put them on the show bench, the Northern birds look a lot bigger. So I'm old school, whereas the fact is they should have single classification for them type of birds. And I've always believed that. And now some people these days saying, well, we're breeding that many of them. Why can't we just introduce them to one class? We don't need to. We've got classifications from as we are, as in Northern section and British section. So I think that's how they should be. And then if it's a Northern Cross, it can still go for best in show. But they're never going to do, in my opinion, because they're duller. Like Northern Bully hybrids are always duller than a British counterpart. I mean,
Is that because they're contemplating? Is that because they're compensating soils for color?
I would say so. And not just that, though, where they come from, the type. I mean, don't get me wrong, you do get some really good coloured Siberian bullfinches, as in normal colours. You do get yellows and buffs still, but when it comes to breeders these days, they're going down the line of mutations. And a lot of the mutations are all buff birds anyway. So unless they are going to do an hybrid, then they would use buff to yellow. But like I said, with the brown pastels and stuff, most of the time they're using double buffing. So that's why they're always going to be duller.
Yeah. Do you think the native style of bird has changed to the detriment of fertility over, like, if you see a greenfinch from say 5, 6, maybe even as short as 10 years ago, and you see it today, they're a much bigger bird. Is that way we're all progressing? You can see it in the budgie, see it in border, see it in red. You can see it. Everything has just got bigger.
Yeah, it is, but it's within reason. Now, I've got in the shed, if anyone watched my YouTube video that I put out over the weekend, I've got greenfinches on chicks now. So the whole point is it's fitting in the birds. I mean, there's been a show today, Eastern Federation show, which is British birds, mules, hybrids, and softbills. Now, I stopped showing just after Christmas to condition my birds, get the weight off them, and get them fit. And then people were still going to show the birds to the last minute, expect their birds to breed 6 weeks' time, and then they wonder why the birds not producing what they should. So if the birds are conditioned properly and get enough time without trying to rush the weight off, like for instance greenfinches, then they'll have more success rather than trying with a rosette. So that's why, I mean, all the bigger shows I know in January, February for the British section, but breeding is more important for me than showing. So, and it proves a point in my shed where I've got the greenies on chicks and some due out tomorrow. So, and then the other 4 pairs are all laying eggs on the floor. And it's one thing I always touch on when people say, is it too early? It's down to how you handle your birds, really. I mean, I'm not talking about crossbills because obviously they go early, or like goldfinches, they're always slightly later. But when it comes to greenfinches, I condition all my birds at once rather than bitting and bobbing with different types of birds.
Yeah. And obviously with the chicks, do you feel this year, you've obviously introduced the new flights this year. They do a really, really good job. In fairness, they look really the business. They're the Italian Galolas or something they're called. What do you call them? They're very fan. They're lovely, yeah. But you've obviously introduced them this year. Do you think that's been a huge factor in the condition of your birds?
Definitely, because they're a lot more accessible for a start, and they are twice the size of what they used to be. I mean, from my videos, you can't really see how big they are. And everyone that's been around and look, they do tell every time that the flights are a lot bigger than what they look, because they are. But it is, I mean, and not just that, like I said, the condition of birds, and it's a common question I get asked quite a lot, is what I feed them, and it's all different. If they're in a cage, I'm trying to give them a basic diet as possible, but it's not as simple as a mixed canary when they're in flights, because they're flying all that off. So, but it is. I think it's definitely, the flights have definitely helped. And to be fair, it's probably the best thing I've done in a few years in there.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
though the other flights were fine, you know, I bred in them. I bred quite a few birds in them over the years. But these, they're easy to clean. They're bigger, and like I said, they're more accessible. I can walk straight in and check a nest without even going in because the doors are bigger and they've got locks on. So everything about them is a lot better.
Yeah. And what do you put, like we obviously watch the Boardroom YouTube channel all the time, and is it just the simply fact that you've conditioned them better this year? Like, when traditionally would you breed greenfinches? When is the
Always
hotbed?
So over the last, what I do is even when I mean, I've had the fifes now. This will be my 4th year of actually keeping them. But I've only shown them for a couple of years. But ever since doing it, I usually, as a thing on Christmas Day, like I've said before, that like all the sprouts and stuff and all the green stuff that I've left over from Christmas dinner, I'll blitz that up and give them egg food rather than throwing it away. And that is the first day of conditioning, not rather, you know, it being slow, a slow process. It's not like full conditioning, and just give it all the way through. Every time around, I've had eggs in February before from bullfinches, chaffinches as well. So, I mean, especially where I'm at in London, it's like last week, it was 17 degrees and it's been 12 today. Even though, you know, up north, it's been really cold still, but we have a different climate down here. And I believe that, you know, it does help. And not just that, it's one thing I always say, that I don't care what you say about conditioning. If you've got your lights set an optimal lighting, I mean, mine's on 13 and a half hours now, they're going to come in condition regardless of what you do. So it's not just about conditioning in the seeds that you give them. So yeah, I mean, from
Yeah.
Christmas, and it's been like that for the last 7 or 8 years.
And when is traditionally the time when most people will, like, we're always talking about, like in the canary world, that everyone breeds sort of end of March, and now a lot of people are breeding end of February. When is traditionally the time for greenfinches?
For everyone else, they usually go second week in April. But it's never worked for me. It's just never. There's a few reasons behind it. I'm a landscape gardener, as you know, so come April, my work is so busy. So I always try and nick around early on, at least, and I've got some secured for the breeding for next year. And not just that, and it makes sense, as I've seen, as I've put on my YouTube, and it's one thing that I mentioned before. The colder weather, not cold weather, but colder weather aids the fertility in birds. And it's a professor that told me this probably 6-8 weeks ago now, and it makes total sense why the fertility in birds is going to be higher when it's cooler than it is when it's going to be hotter. It's just common sense when he told me that. But so everyone usually goes in April when it's cooler. But as you get on through the hot weather in summer, the birds don't want to be sitting on a nest and incubating eggs or feeding chicks. So it just works for me. But like I said, everyone else, second week in April. And that's when my dad used to start. So I don't know what's happened with me, if I was just impatient for a few years, but it works for me. And
yeah,
I say whatever works for you as an individual, always stick to it.
yeah, and we just want to touch on that what you spoke about today in your video. And we were probably having a bit of a discussion there before you come on, just in the lads here. We're always sort of obsessed with temperature. We're always obsessed with temperature, trying to get it hotter sooner and trying to keep it cooler in the hotter weather.
Yeah.
And we were talking mainly about temperature and light. And we did discuss the fact that maybe the obsession with temperature is wrong, that it literally is all in the light and the availability of food that brings birds into condition. Because in the cooler, milder weather, like Adam Kendall was talking today, that he went to a shed today and it was 18 degrees, and he opened the door to let it out to just a hot weather. Graham was saying that he keeps his bird shed probably around 7-8 degrees. I'm inclined to keep mine probably closer to 12 degrees. I don't want to go above 12 because obviously the activation of mite above 12 becomes active. But I suppose we're moving away from that obsession, and your greenfinch have proved it this year. It's not the coldest, it's not the warmest, but you have eggs all over the place and chicks.
Yes. Yep. I mean, the especially with the greenfinch, I weren't even ready for them. And it's when I had a young lad come round who just started with birds last year, and it's him again. I'm not being big-headed, but he watched my YouTube, and then he just wanted to start breeding birds.
Brilliant.
And he told me this. I've seen it on shows, so I invited him round and gave him 2 pairs of fives. And while he was there, he said, "Oh, there's an egg on that floor there," and it was one of the greenfinches, and I didn't even notice it in the morning. So that's what I did. I put it under one of the, and within 5 days, I checked it; they were full. So I just chucked the pair of greenies in a flight. I'd already prepared them anyway, the flights with the nest pans in, and she just laid and carried on laying, and they've hatched. So it weren't down to me even being ready for them. It's just that they were ready, and I think that when I were in partnership with a guy, he used to say to me all the time that when the birds are ready, they'll tell you, and it's one thing that we should really think about, really.
Yeah. And same this year with the fifes. You had a load of eggs in the bottom of the cages too. And they were telling you. So moving on to the fifes,
Yeah.
you've seen they've kicked off well there. How did you what made you get into fifes? How did you just decide to get another one in?
No. So the guy I was in partnership with Mort Ponting, he was really well known, his greenfinches. His best friend was a bloke called Malcolm Lidbury, and he suddenly passed away. And he was showing fives as a champion, and he left them to me and him in his will. So Mark had them there for the first breeding season, bred off them. He had no intention of showing them. So he said to me, "Do you want them for feeders?" And I went, "Well, why not?" And so I got they're all green birds. No really light birds in there. And obviously I like greenfinches, so it didn't bother me. And I always find that darker birds are better feeders anyway. So I had them in my shed and I bred them, and I just looked at them one day. And this is when I found the canary room. And I just looked at Matt's birds and I thought, actually, mine look, half decent. And I remember as a kid what they looked like. But obviously, the models changed from the 90s to what it is now. So, and I looked and I just thought they were quite nice. And I got talking to Matt, and he said, they're all right. And then obviously I spoke to you and started being interested in showing them. So, and that's how it worked. And from then it went from 8 pairs now to 30 pairs. So, and not just greens. I've got obviously cinnamons, whites, and every other colour that there is.
Yeah. I just want to touch there. You sort of brushed over that sort of wild allegation there that you made that you found that green birds are better feeders. Okay. We need to get into this. We need to get into Frank Sanderson wouldn't agree with you. And we need to get into this. Where did that come from? How was that? How have you come to that equation?
It's just something as British bird breeders, we've always, when we've used feeders for like the mules and hybrids, it's always been green birds, mongrel type birds really, but it's always been them. And like I said, when I got them, I never lost a chick, and even now the green line seems to be doing a better job than any other my birds. But then I know that obviously now is my green line that I've got is established, and I know where I am with them, what I can rely on. So, but yeah, back when I was breeding as a kid and my dad had them, we always used to go for darker birds, and it's just something that we always did when we're mules and hybrids. It was always a dark, like for a linear mule, it'd always be a dark green Norwich hen. It's just something we've always
But I
used.
suppose you're right. In fifes, we would try and introduce a South green yellow carrier cock into your cinnamon line because it would always improve the quality of the feather we found.
Well, I can't really. I'm not really that advanced yet on all that type of stuff with the fives, but yeah, what I do is every day is go out there, feed and water them, and enjoy them. I think that's the things we have to do instead of just, oh no, is this that or is it that? And I think that's one thing where we go wrong with most birds. I think we read into things too much instead of just enjoying them as much as what we should do.
Yeah. And is it breeding or showing for you that dogs, or is it just we're obviously inevitable both that we need to breed to show, or we need to show to breed?
No, not for me. No. Even to a point where I would say about 2 years ago, I wasn't even bothered about showing. Just before COVID, actually, I weren't bothered about showing. Don't get me wrong, the the side of showing sees you through that winter period where there's a lull otherwise. If you're not showing, all you're doing is going feeding your birds and watering them and just looking at them.
Yeah.
So for the side of showing and getting out there talking to people is something that sees me through the winter period, really. But if the show's completely stopped, I wouldn't really be all that bothered.
Yeah.
I used to, when I first started showing, I used to love it, and to a point where nights before you're anxious and you're up early in the morning and you're probably first to the show all and stuff like that. But as I've got older and all the bickering, it's not just with the fives; it's with the British birds as well. The bickering, I just think I can bother with it. It's rubbish. So yeah, breeding. I really enjoy breeding. I don't know what it is. Just seeing the first nest of chicks, I think that's for me. That's what it's all about. And not just that. I mean, I've got my daughter, the second youngest one, Lola. She's 3, and she every single day she's asking me, "Can we go and see the chicks?" And yeah, I don't think you can beat that.
Yeah, probably right. Yeah. And then in the way of breeding and preparation for breeding, when they come to the British and the native, have you any golden nuggets that you'd like to share with us that you find that has always worked? Is there anything that you do that you've continued to do because it works?
No,
Is it?
particularly. This is the thing. When I first started doing my YouTube channel, I did get a few people who I know quite well saying, "You're telling all the secrets away." But I don't really tend to keep any secrets. I mean, I don't. I mean, I try and give everything, all people, the best opportunity when they watch my videos to take something away from it. To a point like the one I did yesterday, and anyone that hasn't watched it, the spoiler. I've had even Matt Eld message me straight after he'd watched it and said, "I've been and changed all my drinkers now." And even to a guy tonight, went to a bird sale tonight. And he said to me, he was laughing on the sofa watching it, and then he had to go out and change all his drinkers. Just little tips that I offer, and people just overlook it. And I think it's quite good getting that feedback of things that I take for granted from one thing I learned as a kid. And I mean, there's general stuff in there that I do, and I don't keep no secrets. Everything that I know or any secrets that I've got, I have passed out already. So no, there's
not really. And then obviously, how did the board? Obviously, we all watch the boardroom. It's really enjoyable. I really love it. I love that social space that you're in. We obviously have David's boardroom. We've Ollie and OC.
Yeah.
We obviously have Matt. There's a couple of people in that space. How did that come about? Like, how did all of a sudden you decide? Because like, it's phenomenal for the hobby. I don't care what anyone says, no matter what format it's in, it's phenomenal for the hobby. I think we need to take probably a bit of guidance from David's boardroom, David from Derry. I think we need to take a bit of guidance from him as to what he did last year. He done the David Colour Canary Challenge.
Yes.
I know you've done it this year, but I think us as a hobby and as a fancier, I think he probably didn't get the credit he deserved. I think it was a bit probably overlooked as to what he done for the hobby. Because then when he done it, all of a sudden then we had a Gloucester challenge that was being done by Kieran McAvoy from the Armagh show. I know Kieran quite well. He done one too, and he gave away, I think, 5 pairs of Gloucesters. I think David gave away 5 or 6 pairs, and had been given a couple of pairs from someone else to give away. So I think that's something that next year, I think we all should sort of rally around to try and do, because I think it was really good. Like, no, but how did you end up in that social space? Like, no.
Yeah, well, originally, about way before Matt started doing the Canary Room, I messaged Bernard Williams. So years ago, there used to be, well, I've put it on my YouTube channel now. It was a VHS from Derek Holdno, and Derek Holdno over here was probably the biggest breeder of British birds, beagles, and hybrids. And the VHS, I used to watch it. I still watch it now. That's why I loaded it to YouTube. And I just wanted some new ideas of a video. And I messaged Bernard Williams and asked him would he do an updated video on British birds and stuff. And he never got back to me. This probably would have been 10, 15 years ago. And obviously I seen the Canary Room. and for Christmas, it would have been 2019. My wife bought me the recording stuff and said, I have to do it. Because I've always wanted to do that type of stuff, but I'm not really one for any public stuff, anything like that. So, but yeah, even now, it don't bother me no more. But like the first 6 months, just talking to yourself in there on camera feels a bit stupid, but you get used to it. So it was down to Matt that really encouraged me. Well, obviously between Matt and my wife buying me the stuff, it was him who encouraged me to do it. So, and not just that, I think that passing knowledge on, if it gets one person to get into the hobby, then I've done the right job. But since then, the amount of people that said to me, I've only started up with birds again now because of watching your channel. So it's done the right thing for me.
Yeah, yeah. And then just touching back there on the fifes, obviously last year that was your first and second year showing. Really, you sort of showed at the tip of the end of the last year.
So yeah, I started. I tried. I went out and shown once at CBS, and I got one wrong classed. And it weren't down to me. I actually asked a judge what classifications. I said, "Can you check these?" Because obviously I know about British birds. I don't get them wrong classed. But he said, "Yeah, they're all in the right class. Put them in." And everyone was wrong class. And I spoke to the judge after. I pointed to my birds. I said, "Yours are the best birds in this show." And I was like, "Oh yeah, thanks." So since then, and that's when London was my first show with the fifes. And obviously, I spoke to you, and I spoke to Gary McBeef, and yeah, and I had a first ever all five show, got best ever variegated in show, so did all right.
Yeah, and then last year, obviously, first sort of full season where you went at it. Bit of a mixed season for you. You had plenty of successes.
I think my season on a whole was really positive. What did I do? 4 all 5 shows, and I got a special in every single one of them. Well, I'll tell a lie. The Stafford one, which is the Cheshire one, I don't really count because I didn't really understand the Fancy of the Year stuff. I never understood it, and so when you print Fancy of the Year, and I do know now, I put them in totally wrong birds and stuff like that, so I discount that. But yeah, I mean, after that, I had best South Green at one show, second best in show at Kent and Home counties. Yeah, with the fifes, I've had a really good show. Well, with all the birds, really good show season, to be fair.
Yeah. If you ever want to know anything about Fancy of the Year, we've an expert on board, Adam Kendall. Adam would be an absolute expert on Fancy of the Year. Adam would know every in and out when it comes to Fancy of the Year.
No, well, I'm not interested.
Because he's won it twice. He's won it twice. You know, he's won it twice.
Yeah, it just weren't for me, to be fair. I mean, I think the categories that there was in didn't really do anything for a novice that's just beginning, because in my opinion, how can you pick your best bird if you're putting them out to show to see how they're going to do? So it never really worked for me.
Yeah, that's it. And then
I still did come joint third, best Fancy of the Year as novice. I think I did really well.
Yeah. And then obviously this year coming in, obviously birds are breeding well. What have you looked to improve in your birds? Have you an opinion? Have you brought that in?
Yeah. I've bought a couple of outcrosses in, and I'm going for best in show this year.
Are we? That's the goal this year? That's the goal.
I think it's any year. I think anyone that says I'm gonna. I mean, I go to a show. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna be disheartened or upset if I didn't win. What I get disheartened with is winning with a bird that is not up to the scratch, or same with the British. When I used to go there, and I've bred a bird and I take it to a show, and if it holds its own, then fine. If I'm showing against a bird that's been bought in just to beat me, then it really gets my back up. So anyone that wins with a bird that they've bred, like Matt Dando bred some fantastic birds, and it's shown on the show bench. So fair play to him. So this year, at least I bred my birds and shown them, and that's what I'm going to do again. So yeah.
There's no embarrassment in saying you want to win, Shane. There's no embarrassment. There's a natural competitiveness in everything we do. Like I'd be very competitive.
There is.
Like
I
I nearly
agree
want to
with
beat I
you.
beat the kids at Tiddlywinks, you know. I try and beat the kids at Tiddlywinks, you know. I wouldn't give them an inch, you know. And there's as we have a couple of fanciers on here who compete and show different species. Like Russell there, he's a very competitive. It's whippets, you know,
Yeah.
and you can see the love and everything he has for them dogs. But there's no doubt about it. Like anything else, when he goes to Crufts or anyone else, like he wants to win. Like you know that's the hard work comes out, and you like to win. Like you know, so there's no embarrassment at that by saying
No,
you want to
no,
win a
no.
best in show. Like no,
It's just that I would go up and shake anyone's hand and say well done to anyone regardless of that. But I
yeah,
just think, yeah, just me. I mean, I've been the same with the British birds many a times, and every single time I've won with a British bird, best in show, it's always been the bird that I've bred myself, and you get more an achievement out of winning with your own birds, and you feel some sense of achievement when you do
do you
that.
think owner bred will ever come in Canaries?
What was that? Sorry.
Do you think owner bred will ever a category of owner bred will
Well,
come? Do you
we
think it will
do.
ever come?
We do at shows here. We do have, especially at my show that I've run, Carshalton and Wallington. We have current year owner bred only, and this is where I mean we're nowhere checking it, but it's something that I think more shows should introduce, and I just don't know how it's going to be managed. But
Yeah,
we, I show, and I think that's the way it should be. But it's an hard one. I mean, I know the best bird should win on the day. I know that, and there's no two ways about it. But I just don't see the achievement of someone buying a bird, unless it's a mule hybrid. That's a totally different thing. But when it
but
comes to
but
berries, it's
yeah,
different.
but as I touched there just on dogs, I know in dogs wise, um, you can show the dog all you want, but the credit does always go to the breeder. Now,
Yeah,
Russell may correct me on that, but I'm always of the understanding when I was only watching Crufts, it's on at the moment, like now, and I would always say like the dog is owned by Paul Arkin, but it's bred by someone
yeah,
else. You know, it's always the credit is always given there, and that's probably where I'm not like if you own it and you're feeding it, I'm always of the opinion if you own a feed it, you can show it. I've never
yeah.
had an issue with lads showing a bought board. I never have. I won't criticize anyone for showing it as a bought board. But I think where the credibility comes is when they ask you, where'd you get that board? I think
Yeah.
when you tell them you bred it yourself, that's where it comes wrong. Like I've no problem if someone said to me, "You won that board, yeah?" I don't show bought boards. I've no problem with it. But if someone said to me, if a clear yellow hen won, where'd you get that? I bought that off Adam Kendall. Like
No,
I'd have
no,
no I'd have no
there is,
problem with that. I genuinely don't have a problem with
there is no. There's Kev Hogan, for instance. I know he does it all the time. Every time he feeds bought a bird in, and he will give credit to the breeders. And my friend Stacey Turner, he won. He broke a record this year at one of the All British shows, and he gave credit to the breeder of the bird. So and that's how it should be. In at
it. Yeah.
least that you can say, well, yeah, I've kept it. I've colour fed it, especially like I said with the hybrids. I've colour fed it. I've looked after it. I've put it into that show condition. So it is my bird, but he bred it.
Yeah,
So
well, Rich Nightingale done the exact thing this year. He banged out a load of cinnamons into shows, and when he was putting it even on, even when he put the post onto Facebook, he'd always say, "Yeah, I won, but it's been bred by John Hoots or Jason
yeah,
Hoots." It's
well,
like,
that's how it should be, hundred
yeah,
percent.
I think that's probably where it's going to go, you know. And then looking forward to the British. Obviously, have you anything funny or wonderful in the shed that you brought in? Did you like?
I did an outcross swap with a Greenfinch cock this year, and it was quite embarrassing actually because I paid mine up, and I spoke to the guy anyway. I said to him, I said, "Look, mine are paid up, but I've got two spare cock birds here, and it was a like for like cock bird." And I took him up to Stafford. I said, "Pick which one you want." And when he bought me the bird that he bought me, it looked so much better. I was getting he went, "Oh, well, it's been in the cage for 3 weeks because I've been fattening up so he could see its potential." So, and it is that's with that that's the greeny cock because I needed new blood because mine's getting quite close. It's some line that I've worked on for a few years. I was gifted two pairs of red poles from Stacey Turner, which is a the Meek and Turner and Meek partnership. So he gifted me them, so I'll breed them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And are you predominantly, is your favorite British bird the greenie? Is that where you've sort of the love is for now?
No, my favorite bird is actually goldfinches and linnets, but
A nightmare to keep.
it's the green goldies are, but where we are, probably 20 miles from here, there was a spate of break-ins many a times just because goldfinches singing, and where I am, basically middle of nowhere, and I live literally on a small holding. Next door to me is a garden centre. And anyway, if I had a shed full of goldfinches, they'd be lifted overnight, guarantee it. So sometimes you have to just be a bit smart and not keep them in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Again,
I did before. I actually 2 years ago, I said to my mate exactly that. I said that someone, I sent them to his and he bred them, and he gave me the youngins back off it. So yeah, not be all in all. Because no one wants red poles or anything like that because they make an horrible noise. So
red poles.
Yeah, they make a really funny noise. Red balls and siskins. So
Yeah,
I
so
know
they're
the
not yeah,
screech
yeah,
like screaming noise. Have you seen Scream movies?
yeah. And in the way of the British section, do you think the British section is growing with fanciers, or are we starting to lose them?
No. There's when I was a novice with the British, you were showing against 3 or 4 people at CBS. Go to a major all British show, you may be showing against 20 different novices. But since I started with videos, and since Oliver from OCA has been doing his, there's so many different novice sections now, and it's very competitive. I was talking to a friend of mine, Davey, who was just back from the show today. He's had birds for, I would say, a couple of years, and he's won best mule hybrid in show as a novice, which I've done it many times, but I'm not being big-headed. But for him, this is his first year of showing. It's a real big achievement, a big show. So the section of novices is really strong at the moment.
Yeah. And what's the big British show? When is that? When is the big one? What's the
There's 4 or 5. There's Staffordshire British Bird Mule Hybrid Club. There's the All British, Nantwich, but it's not been on this year. There's Eastern Federation, which has been on today. And there's London Home Counties. There's one that I was involved with. I set up the Southeast British Bird Mule Hybrid Club. I set that up 3-4 years, just before COVID. We had 2 shows. First show, we got 300 odd birds, and that was at short notice. And then 300 odd at the second one. And then basically the Cage Navy pulled the carpet from underneath us and said we can't have the all anymore because it was sponsored by Cajun Navy. So that went down the pan, really. But we are working on another big one down in London.
Yeah. And what's the big one to win? Is there one that you would like to win that you've never won? Is there one that's missing from the loop?
There is, but it's the national, really. Only because my dad won it at the proper national, I would say.
December national.
The Birmingham national.
Birmingham, yeah, Birmingham.
My dad won it as a novice there. So I'd like to win that, but I've always got Kevin Taylor, who's always, I'm literally second to him. I showed him this year at the national. I was second to him in every class again. And it was the same as a novice. I got best novice. Evers and Ponting got best novice there, and it was Paul O'Kane that judged it. And we had
another dairy man like David.
And really nice bloke. I spoke to him a couple of days ago. But when it came to the end of the show, we went up there with our bird and the bird that won. He said there's actually nothing in them. So that'd be one to win. But I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not that bothered. I mean, I have won some really good shows with. I went to the South Coast National 2 years in a row. The very first time I was last year's novice, and I won every single special in the British and softball section. So, and it was a judge. And when I said to him, I went in and I looked, And I was showing him my birds, and he said, "Bloody hell!" He said, "Someone's going to think something's going on here," because I'd won every single special.
You won't be invited back next year.
I did. I went back the year after and done the
Did you? Yeah.
But then I said to him, I said, "Why don't you let me judge it instead? Because give someone else a chance." But this year, I only put a couple in, and I still got best green finching show. So, yeah, I was happy with it anyway.
Yeah. Do you think we're ever going to see a traditional national back? Like I seen east of Scotland there.
Yeah,
I think that was the next great hope. I think everyone was looking for it. I think they've moved their date. I think maybe the venue's not available. I don't know what the reason is behind it. In fairness, and I don't think they can. I don't think they can be. Which
something to do with the dates, isn't it? The
yeah,
Scottish.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I don't think they can be. I don't think people should be really criticizing them because the lads have
No.
put huge effort in, and to try and even put some sort of a Scottish national on. Yeah,
I
I don't
know.
think. I think the people who criticize people who run shows are the ones who have never ran a show because it's quite difficult. So I've seen a bit of criticism online towards them, and I think it's a bit unfair.
I
Um,
have, and I mean, I have the same thing. One thing I have to think about is the national, the Stafford National is a week before that.
yeah, yeah,
And that's going to get birds entered. And yeah, we're all in the same boat, regardless of who you are. So the 8th of October, everyone's going to be in the same boat. I got my birds ready for the first week in October, the British birds. Even this year, what did I get? I got best current year bred mule hybriding show, and that's colour feeding it as well. So if you do it, I mean, not saying early, but it comes out the same point again. If breeding earlier, you get your birds ready early. That's the only be all and end all about it.
yeah. Probably that's why this year I'm probably being slightly later on some of my boards because I'm going to show at the World Show in Spain.
Yeah,
So it won't really bother me that they're going to be they're a bit later, you know. So as you said, I'm breeding later because my shows are going to be later. And as you
yeah,
said, if you breed earlier because your shows are going to be earlier, you can, yes, you might not have the same quantity, but I just think I just seen her online and there was a bit of unfair criticism I felt towards them, like
yeah,
it's a huge effort to put it on. And yeah, maybe people are disappointed and maybe the posts come out as a bit of disappointment. But in fairness to the lads, I don't know them. In fairness, I don't think I know anyone that's run them. I think they're all being run by individual clubs. But do you
yeah.
think we'll ever see a national come back in the sort of second week of December? Could we
No,
could you see cage boards being bullied into a bit of sponsorship and trying to get it back again?
I think they should. I really think they should because there was the big factor of it in the 90s when I used to do the
Yeah,
national.
same, yeah.
I think some like not just that, the British Bird Council, the IOA, give us something back as they're big companies. I'm not saying they make a lot of money, but give us breeders and exhibitors something back, and help to put on a better show for, like you said, the old national. It's something that a few years ago, probably 5 years ago, actually, it's something that I toyed about. Is trying to get the old national back, but the inheritance of the name, I looked into it. You wouldn't be able to be called the national anyway because that was inherited by Stafford. So it'd have to be called something else anyway.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
could
I
never be
think
called national.
yeah, I think there's a bit of a feel in Ireland here about getting it back. I think there's a couple of Norwich fans here.
Yeah.
I don't know him that well. I don't know him at all actually. I just know his name. And there's inklings about trying to get it back here because obviously under the Brexit rules and obviously things that's happened with the rules, there's a very limited amount that can travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough I'll be able to travel this year and bring boards over. Obviously, we've gone through the licensing process to try and make it easier. But that's not accessible to the normal fancier and to everyone else, like because to set up a company, it's a car crash of stuff to do. So I think there's definitely feeders here to try and bring back the old Irish national. And I think it's just about getting governing bodies and to run together, really, isn't it? I think that's probably the secret.
I think it's something that can be achieved. As I've just received a message, the English national. Bloody yeah! Why do I think about that? It's just common sense. Yeah, the English national. Why not? Why not? Because we've got the Scottish national, Welsh national. Why not the English national? But if there's enough top names involved in it, I think it's something that 18th of December, brilliant day. And it's something that all the clubs could get involved with. I mean, it just needs a bit of pushing forward, I'd believe. And I mean, I'd be willing to help anybody that is interested in it, and try and get something of it. I mean, it's easy. It's one thing that I remember as a kid. My dad used to drive around to, used to belong to 3 different clubs, and he used to drive around to all the exhibitors and pick their birds up and charge them, say, a tenner a box to birds all the way to Birmingham.
Yeah. Because I think one of the pushes that should bring it back there is the unavailability of being able to show on the continent now. The fact that you can't attend a world show. I think the IOA, the Canary Council, the British Board Council, they should all sort of be looking at that as an opportunity now to bring that back.
That's the thing, yeah.
Because you can no longer
big associations out there.
That
put together and come up with some ideas. Not just that, there's not just them. There's the Irish, the International Irish Fancy. There's so many different organisations that could really spin something off if they put their heads together. Like the Norwich head as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of opportunity. It's something that people are really wanting to do. Because someone mentioned it to me a few months ago. One of my friends, Alistair, he mentioned it to me about trying to instigate it, but I said I've tried it.
Yeah. So to sort of wrap it up, we'll open up. We're on probably an hour. We get the lads in there too. The aspirations this year coming in, obviously show a few more British, and obviously we're looking at a best in show in Fife, best novice.
Then I'll hang up my coat then and sit back and enjoy. I've got a couple more hybrid pairs paired up this year, so we'll see. We'll see how they get on, because hybrids are a pain in the backside for anybody. So we'll see.
Then you're coming to Ireland. You're coming to Ireland now. The last week in October, you're going to be judging on the Saturday in the Armagh County District CBS show. Yourself and Adam. We're coming over. That'll be a nice weekend.
Doing the Welsh National judging. That's quite a good thing. I think that's come about with the YouTube channel. I've been asked to judge the Welsh National British section. So yeah. I mean, that's the biggest. I'm probably punching above my weight here, but I would say that's the biggest judging engagement I will have. But anything to go by what this year's show was, then we'll see.
Yeah, the way it's good to have the Welsh National back, and no matter what capacity it was back, it was great to have it back.
Any show that's put on, I think, is, it's like you said, I know the efforts it goes to put a show on, because I've done a few myself, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to it, and the best bird will win, and hopefully it's something, not just a greenfinch or redpoll.
Yeah. Listen, Shane, thanks very much for coming on. As always, me and you are good friends. We speak all the time on obviously on Messenger, and I really appreciate you coming on. I'll sort of open up to the floor, and we can see what lads have to offer. I wish you all the best for the coming breeding season. Obviously, you've got off to a great start. I'll obviously see it in a few weeks when I'm over on my travels. We'll hook up and we'll get down and see the new flights in person. But for me, thanks very much as always. You're always been a great supporter of me all the time through all the sort of trials and tribulations that we've had. So I really appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. But we'll open